Welcome everyone to IsisParenting's Breastfeeding Chat and Learn. My name is Nancy Holtzman. I'm a mom and baby nurse educator, board certified lactation consultant, board certified in pediatrics, and I oversee the education programs here online at IsisParenting. We're based in Metro Boston. I'm sitting here in Needham, Massachusetts. With me today as a moderator is Katie Goldsberry. Thank you for being in the chat room, Katie. Today, as we do each Thursday at 12 noon, we're going to spend the first 15 minutes or so doing a learning topic, and then we'll spend the second 15 minutes or so answering general breastfeeding, pumping, general baby-related feeding questions. And we're here every Thursday at 12 noon, and then, of course, every Tuesday at 12 noon, we do the same thing around infant and toddler sleep. So today's topic, again, in honor of World Prematurity Awareness Day, which is this coming Saturday, I believe, and November is Prematurity Awareness Month. And so every November we really highlight the need for more education in terms of preventing preterm birth, helping people understand the implications of early delivery, near-term elective delivery, and really reducing some of the risk factors as best we can and reducing the risks of prematurity. So in this picture here, we see a variety of stages of preterm babies. So on the upper left-hand corner, that baby looks to be perhaps about maybe 20, 25, 26 weeks and might weigh about 1 to 2 pounds. And then on the upper right corner, that baby perhaps is maybe a 30, 32-weeker, maybe in the 3-pound, 4-pound range. Down below is a baby who's a near-term baby, so that might be a 35-week baby, and sometimes even when infants are born in that 34 to 37-week range, what we call near term, previously they really weren't often treated as premature babies if they were able to eat and grow and maintain their temperature and breathe on their own. They were often sent right home with their parents at 36 or 37 weeks and not treated any differently or watched any more carefully than any other infant who might just be on the smaller side at 5 or 6 pounds. But now, why the March of Dimes is working so hard on their campaign to reduce elective early inductions before 39 weeks, because sometimes even though someone is uncomfortable or quite large during the 37th or 38th week of pregnancy, we know that there are implications to babies being born even a few weeks earlier than they might have otherwise intended. Now, regardless of when your baby comes, whether they are very, very early, what we call micro-preemies, premature infants, near term, full term, or even late term, breast milk is important. And in particular, most important, essential, really, like medication for the fragile babies in the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU, because this is a little bit of an alien environment, and it's a very, very high-tech environment. Babies are almost completely wired up and monitored from feeding tubes, various intravenous catheters, sometimes central lines that are required to provide fluid and monitoring their cardiac status. There's a lot of risk in terms of infection for these fragile babies because their immune systems aren't mature yet either, and their gastrointestinal systems aren't mature for eating yet either. So a baby that's supposed to be in utero for 40 weeks, when they actually arrive at 30 weeks, their intestinal lining is far more fragile and they're far more at risk for all different types of infections because of the environment around them, and then because they are actually being expected to do things like breathe and eat far earlier than they otherwise were supposed to. Another really important thing about this environment is take a look at the picture. This is not how a mom imagines caring for her infant. So This is an environment where it may seem like the physicians and the NICU nurses are very much in charge of every aspect of the baby's care, from repositioning to bathing to diapering, monitoring, feeding. The babies are very, very fragile and very small, and it's a very intimidating, noisy environment, even though we know that we should try to make it darker in the evening and limit the sounds and the noises that disrupt the baby. There is a lot of talking and a lot of alarms and beeping noises going on, and it's a very intimidating environment for a parent to come and see their baby and sit by the baby's isolette or bassinet this way day after day. And a lot of times parents begin to feel like there's not a lot that they can do for their baby, and that maybe they're not even as needed or as important to their baby as the caregivers, the hospital caregivers are. And that's so not true, and in particular not true when it comes to direct physical contact, skin to skin care, what's called Kangaroo Care, the importance of touch, and even gentle massage for preemies, and then of course most importantly for mother's own milk, because one really, really amazing thing is that you really can't fool in terms of trying to create an artificial substitute or some sort of a improved infant formula to feed premature babies. They have found some things that babies can survive and grow and even thrive on, but they haven't found anything better than a mother's own milk, and we'll talk a little bit about why this is. So pumping is really something that only the mom can do for her premature babies in the NICU. And it's a big time commitment and it's a big stressor, but it's really important that mom, if she's able to, begin to initiate expressing milk and that the milk is fed to the baby. Many reasons why breast milk is so important. We talked about the risk of infection. You can see the baby down below. Look at all of the various lines and wires. And each time you interfere with the skin integrity, you're opening up the risk for infection. So a baby that's going to be in the hospital where, of course, the worst and scariest germs are, this is also one of the most fragile creatures because they don't have mature immune systems yet. They have no resistance to infection. They also are at particular risk for a digestive problem called NEC, and that stands for necrotizing enterocolitis. And what that means is that the immature bowel, when it's not fed human milk, it actually, the lining of the bowel becomes very irritated and inflamed, and that inflammation creates an infection in the bowel, and that's a very, very devastating diagnosis for premature babies. And I wouldn't say that it's extremely common. You know, it's not that every other premature baby ends up with this bowel infection, but for the babies that do, it requires multiple severe surgeries, often ostomies like a colonostomy, and sometimes they don't survive it. And we do know that when a baby is first fed colostrum and then fed their mother's milk preferably, or even donor human milk, there is statistically far lower risk of this severe gastrointestinal infection. So that's really, really important, especially for the micropreemies. Require human milk. Other things that are important with human milk are these very special DHA and ARA specific long chain polyunsaturated fatty acids that help develop the baby's brain and eyes and other neurologic processes. When a baby is born prematurely, they're actually missing out on some pretty important brain growth and brain development that happens during the last couple of months of growth in utero. So not only is the brain of a 35-weeker significantly smaller than the brain of a 40-weeker, but it actually has a less surface area, and these little the little crenulations or the rivulets in the brain that give it that texture, they have much less texture in the brain too. So giving the baby specific food that specifically nourishes and helps grow the neurons and improve the brain growth is essential as well. In terms of infection, breast milk has some very, very interesting things in it that is not found in formula, and it's not even found in other mammal milk. So the big diagram you see in the center slide here is a diagram of something called an oligosaccharide, and that is very unique in human milk. We actually have 130 different oligosaccharides in human milk, and it's related to so many functions in terms of keeping the baby healthy. Infection control, decreases inflammation, it provides an anti-infective property in the baby's GI tract, and a lot of people don't know that the baby's immune system actually is the GI tract. So when babies are very young, the GI tract is still permeable, and they can that's primarily where they can get a lot of infection and illness. So colostrum, the early milk, actually coats the GI tract and provides human growth hormone that helps develop the GI tract to become more mature. So it fights infection and it digests milk better. And then the breast milk itself actually contains substances that are anti-infective in and of themselves. And some of the pictures on the left-hand side show some specialized white blood cells and phagocytes that are in breast milk that actually seek and destroy viruses, germs, bacteria. So the milk itself actually has these very important functions in it. And the interesting thing about breast milk, it doesn't premature baby system, which is important because it's those same types of inflammatory or high cortisol level issues that also are related to things like the retinopathy of prematurity, which is an eye problem that many preemies end up with, and it creates vision issues or even blindness. And so you might think, well, how does human milk help prevent an eye problem? But it probably has to do with decreased inflammation throughout the baby system. Same thing for chronic respiratory issues with infants. So feeding the baby only mother's milk or only human milk actually improves the baby's respiratory function too, which is a completely separate issue from the infection control and the nutrition. So when a baby does arrive early, sometimes this is expected or not unexpected in the case of multiples or high-risk pregnancies, but other times a baby may be born surprisingly, water may break at 32 weeks, or mom may go into preterm labor at 33 weeks, or a baby may just begin to arrive at 34 or 35 weeks. And that baby may not be ready to come to breast for days or weeks or sometimes even months, depending on how early the baby arrives. And so it's a very sensitive period because it's important to get the milk moving early and regularly. Initiating and then maintaining full milk production is a real challenge when the baby is not as involved. And so mom will ultimately be using a breast pump in order to initiate and then maintain her milk production. And sometimes because of the reason that the baby came early, maybe there was some kind of a medical crisis that mom was under, or it was an emergency surgery situation, or maybe the baby came quite early and the health state is very fragile. Sometimes healthcare providers are very nervous about bringing up this topic with moms. They don't want to put more stress on her. They don't want her to have to feel guilty for making a decision to pump or not to pump. They don't want to overwhelm her with even more information. And yet, time and time again, the research shows that it's very important to address this early with the new family, with the new mom, because she will be angry if 2 or 3 or 5 days later she's having difficulty with milk production and nobody told her, nobody helped her, nobody got her set up on that first day to really begin that process. And again, the mother's milk is really one of the most important critical medications for the premature baby, and only she is able to provide it. And if you don't get on it early and often, it can lead to much bigger issues down the road. So manual expression for the colostrum, and one interesting thing about premature birth is that women that have premature babies have colostrum. That's that very, very early, thick, yellowish breast milk. They have it a lot longer than women that have full-term babies. So the earlier the baby, the more likely it is that mom will have colostrum for a longer period of time before her milk switches over to more mature milk. And that's really interesting because it's really super colostrum. Preterm colostrum has a very high concentration of the human growth hormone and anti-inflammatory and anti-infection components, like we talked about, that provide just the right type of coating to mature the baby's intestinal lining. And even babies that are so young, so small, so fragile that they're not ready to digest human milk at all, the NICU will still use that colostrum to provide oral care and swab the baby's mouth with colostrum. It's that important. So moms need to get started using massage, compression, manual expression, and a hospital grade. Just teeming. There's probably a million blood cells in that colostrum right there. And what, the 8 ball is there because 8 is kind of a research-based magic number. We know that when you are initiating and then maintaining milk production with a pump instead of the baby, expressing milk 8 times in 24 hours is kind of, you know, the minimum gold standard number in order to bring in a full milk supply. So that roughly correlates to every 2 to 3 hours during the day, every 3 to 4 hours at night. And that is hands-free, hands-on double pumping. Another interesting thing about expressing milk for a preemie is that you can actually track and see when premature babies have health crises or are very ill, mom's milk production can dip a little bit, and when mom is able to hold, touch, and provide skin-to-skin care and kangaroo care, it actually increases her milk production. So holding, touching, and that skin-to-skin kangaroo care is actually quite beneficial for milk production. If you know a mom or support a mom or work with moms who have premature babies, remember that pumping milk is going to be a very long-term commitment and they need ongoing encouragement and support. So a couple of my favorite things in the left-hand corner here is a mom who's using the Simple Wishes hands-free pumping bra, which really is a must-have for anyone that's expressing milk more than once a day. So you can express both breasts at the same time, which frees up your hands so that you can do the important massage and compression while you're pumping. But you can also eat a sandwich or a snack. You can type on your computer. You can touch your baby if you're pumping at the side of the isolette. Although a hospital-grade rental pump really is going to be best and most important if somebody is exclusively pumping for a premature baby, there is also quite a nice benefit to having a high-quality, highly portable pump. The picture up on the top with the black bag is one of my favorite high-quality double automatic personal use breast pumps. It's called the Freestyle by Medela, and I like that one because it has an internally charged battery, and that plus the hands-free bustier, like the mom's using in the image, means she can stand up, walk around, move from one side of the room to the other, and she really is portable. When a woman is pumping 8 times in 24 hours, she needs to be able to pump in different types of settings and pump on the go. Using some sort of a chart or a log for pumping. So here's a paper log, but of course now most moms are using apps. There's some really good apps for pumping, for for breastfeeding and so on. And logging your times and your volumes will really give some good data down the road. It's possible if a mom is exclusively pumping. Some things we want to watch for are to make sure that by the end of the first week, after her baby is a week old, it would be desirable for her to be able to be expressing 500 to 600 cc's of breast milk on a daily basis, and that kind of sets the stage for good longer-term milk production. So sometimes if a mom is at week 2, week 3, week 4 of exclusively pumping for a sick baby or a premature volumes don't dip. So you can kind of use that log to track particular changes, and also notes like if there's a day that she was really stressed and she skipped meals, or she let herself get a little bit dehydrated and her milk production dipped. It's easy to see that when you're logging these things, and so it really reinforces the best practice in terms of the frequency and thoroughness of milk removal. Sometimes a woman will have difficulty expressing milk for her baby, and sometimes it may have to do with how early the baby arrived, or the situation around why the baby arrived early, or it may have to do with pre-existing health issues that she may have had. Sometimes that caused fertility issues as well, may be related. And occasionally, sometimes medications are used to help bump up a mom's milk production. The two most commonly known medications that are both prescription medications are metoclopramide, which is the brand name Reglan, and domperidone, which is the brand name Motilium. So Motilium or domperidone is probably a better medication for milk production. It's an off-label use, and it's not readily available in the United States, although it is a safe a medication that's considered safe to use for breastfeeding women, and it's used extensively in Canada and Europe, and it's often shipped from Canada or Europe to the United States for this use. And then, of course, moms require a lot of freezer space, so some moms will be stressing and able to produce small volumes of milk. Other moms may have a baby who arrived at 28 or 30 weeks who's taking very, very small volumes of milk, and mom 6 or 8 times a day is expressing 250 cc's of milk, and so very, very quickly after a couple of weeks she may have a huge surplus of breast milk and be running out of freezer space. And so we can talk a little bit about how you farm out milk to friends and family who have chest freezers. Some moms will invest in a chest freezer, and then of course other moms will be very altruistic and consider becoming a human milk donor and support other moms and babies who don't have the additional milk or aren't able to produce milk or give milk to the baby. Again, there's some good resources here for evidence-based practice to make sure that milk production starts up and gets up to where it needs to be. And you'll hear me talk a lot in other webinars talking about expressing milk and boosting milk production, the importance of hands-free, hands-on double pumping. And so using a combination of massage and compression and manual expression in addition to the high-quality pump. And there's a great resource down here. Dr. Morton over at Stanford School of Medicine has done some great work on this, and I put a link to a couple of webinars, videos that are really, really good at showing the importance of milk production for premature babies and some specific how-to pump for a preemie videos. I did want to just mention a little bit about the importance of the place about this, and think of human milk banking like it is the Red Cross. It's a regulated, with oversight, source of tested product that is medicinal and that is distributed to hospitals for use with hospitalized infants. So much like you wouldn't go to your neighbor and say, oh, I'm feeling a little low, can you give me a unit of blood? Instead, it's something that's very highly regulated. So to become a milk donor, and I did put some links here. The Mother's Milk Bank of New England is one of just a handful of HMBNA certified milk banks. So there's two links here. This one at the bottom is Human Milk Banking Association of North America, and they are the overarching body that regulates and oversees the smaller milk banks that are there's about a dozen of them in the United States, and they are the ones that actually take in and recruit donors. They test and process the milk. They maintain the records. In New England, we are fortunate to have a fantastic milk bank here, Mother's Milk Bank of New England, and it's actually located just a couple miles from where I'm sitting right now. We're very good friends with the team over there, and we at IsisParenting have a great working relationship with Mother's Milk Bank of New England. In fact, in honor of World Breastfeeding Week in August, we opened Massachusetts and New England's very first human milk depot at our Hanover Merchants Row ISIS Center. And that was very exciting because now we have a very special certified freezer that's regulated where approved donors, so you have to go through the approval process with Mother's Milk Bank of New England, and that involves doing a health history, having lab work done, having the pediatrician and the OB sign off on the status, and then moms are accepted into the donation program, and they can express their milk at home and freeze the milk, and then once a week or once a month, or when they have the volume of milk that they're ready to do a drop-off, rather than having to drive all the way to the Mother's Milk Bank of New England or do a overnight express, which was the previous way to do it, they can bring the milk to the IsisParenting Merchants Row Milk Depot, which is on the south shore of Massachusetts, so it makes it much easier for many donors. And we have been able to recruit lots and lots of donors for the Mother's Milk Bank of New England through this process. So the milk comes in, as you see in the picture here. This is milk donated in a cooler from a particular certified donor. The milk is brought into a lab situation, and several donors' milk is defrosted and pooled, so it's blended together. So you might have milk from 3 or 4 different donors blended together in a large lot of defrosted milk. Then the milk is blended, and it is both pasteurized and homogenized. Into these smaller bottles, labeled, and then it can be distributed to the hospitals. And here in Massachusetts, almost every single level 3 NICU has a policy where the human milk is available if a mother's own milk is not available, and it is the standard of care in most NICUs. Again, for the many neurologic and anti-infective properties. In terms of feeding breast milk, when a baby is not yet able to eat by mouth or take most feeds by mouth, they may be given a nasal NG tube that goes down the nose, down the back of the throat into the belly, and the milk is slowly and continuously dripped there. And then, as you see in the upper right corner, that's called like a gavage feed, or where it's more of a bolus feed. So the baby may be getting 15 mLs, half an ounce of milk, and then that every 2 hours, every 3 hours, that's gradually increased, and they make sure that the baby's stomach is able to accept the milk and that it's able to move through and be digested without sitting in the stomach for too long. Then a baby is typically moved on to taking the milk by bottle. And it's a lot of work for a premature baby to coordinate the suck, swallow, breathe rhythm that's required for bottle feeding and breastfeeding. And it's also true that breastfeeding is easier in terms of the baby's heart rate and oxygenation levels, but in the neonatal intensive care units, typically because a mom is not there 24/7, and because in that type of situation, the caregivers are very, very, very concerned with volumes in and volumes out. Most of the time, babies are started on bottle feeding or a combination of breastfeeding and bottle feeding. And very commonly, babies are discharged home from the NICU either almost exclusively bottle feeding breast milk or doing a combination of breastfeeding and bottle feeding of breast milk. It would be great if babies were discharged home exclusively breastfeeding, but that can be a much longer process that may take a longer period of time to work on after discharge. And so most of the time, babies are sent home on a feeding plan that involves bottle feeding a certain amount of expressed milk at a certain frequency. Sometimes the milk is fortified, and then there may be breastfeeding involved, and as the baby becomes older and more stable and more able to transfer milk effectively at the breast, more and more of the feedings can be done at breast and gradually taper down some of the supplementation. These are some of the things that are going to be helpful. A hands-free bra and a high-quality pump, because there will be pumping involved for a long period of time. Nipple shields, which I did a webinar on nipple shields a couple of weeks ago, kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. So nipple shields are sort of a misunderstood and often misused piece of plastic, but to breastfeed the 3 and 4 and 5 pound premature baby, very often a nipple shield is an appropriate intervention and can help keep the baby at the breast transferring milk with less effort, and helps the baby maintain the latch longer and does help with milk transfer. So sometimes a nipple shield is used to help a premature baby breastfeed. Sometimes a supplement device like you see in the bottom here can be used. And that's a way to supplement the baby at the breast so that they can be practicing breastfeeding by breastfeeding. And sometimes specialized types of bottles are used, or preemie nipples, to make it easier for the baby both to learn to suck, coordinate their suck, swallow, breathe, and also just take in the correct volume of milk without having to exert a lot of energy and calories while doing so. But one of the most important tools of the trade when it comes to getting ready to breastfeed a preemie is the patience and the tincture of time. It really may be a long and slow process. And I have another webinar that I linked to at the end called Slower Starts to Breastfeeding. And again, whether the baby came early or was ill, or there were oral anatomy issues, or any of the many reasons why sometimes breastfeeding doesn't get off to the best start the way a mom had hoped. Really, breastfeeding can happen at a strong milk supply, because as the baby becomes able to suck at the breast, there needs to be an ample volume of milk for the baby to transfer, to make it worth their while to put the time and effort in. And then really what's going to be key is ongoing support and help. Moms are going to be discharged, parents will be discharged from the hospital with a feeding plan, and often there's not a lot of information about a transition plan. So how do you transition from less bottles or less supplements to more time at the breast? How do you transition from the nipple shield to not using the nipple shield? When do you stop using a fortifier or a supplement? These are all the questions that new parents have in the days and weeks after they're arriving home with their preemie, and they're not always sure where to go to get those answers. So that's another important thing. But in fact, somebody in our webinar today, I'm not sure if she's still here, is someone I know. I haven't been following the chit chat room, but this is a mom who has 1-year-old twins that she has gone on to successfully express milk for and breastfeed for a year. It's almost their birthday. And then another mom on Twitter this morning retweeted information about this webinar, and I thanked her, and she emailed back and said, well, I have 2-year-old twins that were born at 32 weeks and 2.5 pounds, and I pumped for them and I breastfed them, and I'm still breastfeeding them. So it certainly can, and it can be done. And it's important. So, whichever way they're starting off getting the milk, and however it happens. Each drop of milk has value. It's dose dependent, so we know that that exclusive breast milk is the ideal, the gold standard. But we know that even mostly breast milk has huge benefit. Partial breast milk has benefit, and any volume of colostrum or breast milk actually has measurable benefit to the infant. So, so more is better than some, and some is better than none, and we really need to encourage and embrace the volumes of milk that moms are working hard to provide for their babies and get those babies home from sometimes many weeks in the NICU. It's a very rocky, long course, and it can feel overwhelming. Here are some great links you can come back to later. I'll post this webinar online. And March of Dimes is a great resource. It's a great stepping off point for everything related to preterm birth. A couple of webinars I put on here is friends of ours online. Keaton Cookin is a great online support network, primarily for women with high-risk pregnancy, women on bed rest, and great resources on preterm birth. And then Peekaboo ICU is another online support community with an active Facebook and an active website and message boards and things like that, primarily supporting parents of premature infants. We here at ISIS offered a great webinar a week ago with Dr. Adam Wolfberg, who's a maternal fetal medicine physician and very well known in circles around preterm birth. And we had Dr. Wolfberg was joined with a pediatric neurologist and then a pediatric learning specialist. They presented some fantastic information about the preemie as the preemie grows through infancy, toddlerhood, into preschool, and early elementary. So talking a little bit about some things to watch for in terms of developmental milestones and learning and behavior support, things like that. And then I linked to an article on human milk banking and a little more background around why human milk donor is so important and how to become a milk donor. So I think that's about it for this one. In terms of reminding you to come back next week, we do this every week, so some of you may have been here for the first time because of today's topic, but we do the Breastfeeding Chat and Learn every week at ISIS. It's every Thursday at 12 noon, and we've got about 40 different webinar topics posted on the archive page now, everything from introducing solid foods to oversupply, to how do you manage blocked ducts and mastitis. It's a great resource to share with your friends or your patients or your clients. We're here every week. Usually it's a little bit more interactive. We do a lot of Q&A. This week we're running out of time, but some weeks we just do Q&A instead of a planned topic. And then we do the same thing every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern time with our sleep support team. So we do infant toddler sleep. The archives for those fantastic webinars are posted as well. Please do help us by spreading the word about this wonderful free resource. Put it on your Facebook page, retweet it. If you are on email lists, share news on your email list about it, add it to your calendar so you remember to come back. Follow ISIS on Twitter. I'm on Twitter myself. We have an active Facebook page, so you'll keep current with the various webinars. Three classrooms, a consult room, and a nice lounge to sit, feed, play, relax, visit with other families, as well as a great retail floor. So we'll educate you on everything from the right car seat to developmental toys and activities for your infant, breastfeeding support products, you name it. So we're here and we're happy to support expecting and new families in Metro Boston and beyond. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you back either on Tuesday or Thursday. And thank you, Katie, for moderating.